I mean, I think we all would be hopefully more well.
Vince Gill has always been more than just a country music legend. He's been a voice of comfort, a man whose songs could bring peace to broken hearts and joy to restless souls. From the moment he stepped onto the stage, his rich tenor carried a warmth that made millions feel less alone. But behind that golden voice and kind-hearted smile, Vince has endured a journey filled with heartbreak, loss, and challenges that most fans never truly knew about. And now, the latest news surrounding him is nothing short of devastating. For decades, Gill stood as a pillar in country music, admired not only for his unmatched talent, but also for his humility and grace. He became the rare artist who could win over both traditionalists and modern fans, bridging generations with timeless hits. Yet, while the world celebrated his success, Vince quietly shouldered personal pain that shaped his artistry. What makes this new chapter of his life so tragic is not only the toll it's taken on him, personally, but also the way it reflects the struggles of a man who has already given so much of himself to music, family, and faith. From the heartbreaking loss of loved ones to the pressure of carrying the legacy of country music, Gill now faces circumstances that remind us how fragile even the strongest voices can be. This is the story of a man whose life and career seemed destined for greatness, only to be shadowed by news that has left fans stunned. Vince Gill's journey into country music is not just the tale of a boy with talent. It is the story of a man who combined natural ability, relentless work ethic, and deep humility to carve out a place in an industry that can be both dazzling and cruel. Born in Norman, Oklahoma in April 1957, Vince was introduced to music at a very young age. His father, who worked as a judge, was also a part-time musician. It was from him that Vince learned the banjo, guitar, and mandolin. By the time he was a teenager, Vince was already displaying a rare kind of musical versatility, the kind that allowed him to easily adapt to multiple genres, from bluegrass to gospel to country. Unlike many overnight sensations, Vince's early career was filled with small gigs, long drives, and countless nights performing in dimly lit clubs. He started out in regional bands, honing his craft while entertaining modest crowds who could not have guessed they were listening to someone who would one day sell millions of records. What stood out even then was his voice, smooth, tender, and filled with emotional honesty. This was not the booming, rugged voice many associated with country music. Instead, it was delicate and heartfelt, capable of moving listeners to tears. In the late 1970s, Vince moved to Los Angeles and got his first big break when he joined the country rock group Pure Prairie League. His lead vocals on Let Me Love You Tonight brought him national recognition, proving to the world that his soft tenor could shine on a larger stage. However, despite this exposure, Vince didn't immediately become a household name. The transition to a solo career was tough, with his early records struggling to find a wide audience. Nashville, where he eventually moved, wasn't always welcoming to artists who didn't fit the mold, and many insiders doubted that Vince's gentle style would resonate in an era dominated by flashier personalities. But Vince had something more valuable than overnight fame: persistence. He kept writing, kept recording, and most importantly, kept performing. Slowly, he built a reputation not only as a vocalist, but also as a multi-instrumentalist and songwriter. Musicians admired him for his technical skill, while fans admired his sincerity. Unlike many stars, Vince came across as approachable, almost as if he were the same small-town boy who had once played in dusty bars for beer money. By the late 1980s, the tide began to turn. Songs like When I Call Your Name and I Still Believe in You showcased his strengths and began climbing the charts. These tracks revealed a deeply emotional side of country music, one that emphasized vulnerability and honesty rather than bravado. Nashville could no longer ignore him. Awards began to follow, and Vince quickly established himself as one of the leading voices of contemporary country. Yet even in these early days of recognition, Vince never lost sight of who he was. He remained humble, often deflecting praise to his collaborators, and was known for lending his talents to other artists in the studio. This generosity, combined with his undeniable skill, earned him respect among his peers and adoration from fans. What began as a small-town dream was turning into something much larger, a legacy that would shape the direction of country music for decades. Vince Gill's rise to fame was not about luck, nor was it about following trends. It was about staying true to his art, persevering through doubt, and trusting that authenticity would eventually find its audience. And by the dawn of the 1990s, Vince Gill wasn't just another artist trying to make it. He was becoming a legend in the making. As Vince Gill's career reached new heights in the 1990s, he seemed unstoppable. Hit after hit dominated the airwaves, and his presence at award shows became almost routine. He won multiple Country Music Association (CMA) awards, including Entertainer of the Year, and his name became synonymous with sincerity and excellence. His voice, which had once been doubted for its gentleness, was now celebrated as one of the purest in the business. From radio singles like Whenever You Come Around to heartfelt ballads such as Go Rest High on That Mountain, Vince became more than just a performer. He became a voice of comfort, honesty, and vulnerability for millions of fans. But behind the bright lights and trophies, Vince's personal life carried its own struggles. Fame often complicates relationships, and for Vince, it was no different. His first marriage to singer Janice Oliver, whom he married in 1980, was one built on love and shared passion for music. However, as his career intensified, the pressure of constant touring and the demands of success began to strain their relationship. After nearly 2 decades together, the couple divorced in 1998. The end of his marriage was painful, especially since Vince had always valued family deeply. Yet, during this period of transition, Vince's music seemed to reach a new level of emotional depth. His song Go Rest High on That Mountain stands as one of his most enduring works, inspired partly by the death of his brother and later performed at numerous memorials, including President George H.W. Bush's funeral. This song alone became a touchstone for fans who were grieving, cementing Vince's role not just as an entertainer, but as a healer through music. Amidst the heartbreak, Vince found unexpected happiness when he met Christian singer Amy Grant. Their relationship, which began in the late 1990s, was not without controversy, as both came from complicated personal situations. Yet their bond grew stronger over time, built on mutual respect, faith, and a shared love for music. The two married in 2000, blending their families and embarking on a new chapter together. Amy often described Vince as someone with a heart as big as his music, and their partnership gave Vince renewed strength both personally and professionally. Even with his family life settling, Vince faced other battles. He struggled with balancing his demanding career and his personal need for privacy. Unlike many celebrities, Vince never sought out the spotlight beyond his music. He was, at heart, still the same humble man from Oklahoma who loved playing instruments and writing songs. The trappings of fame often left him uncomfortable, and he preferred to let his art speak for itself. Still, Vince's impact on country music during this era was undeniable. He became a mentor to younger artists, lending his voice and guitar skills to countless projects. His reputation as a collaborator earned him respect across genres, from country and bluegrass to pop and gospel. By the end of the decade, Vince wasn't just a star, he was a bridge between traditional and contemporary country, a man whose music touched generations of listeners. Yet, while his career was soaring, his personal battles, loss, heartbreak, and the search for stability made his journey profoundly human. This balance between glory and grief gave Vince Gill's story its unique emotional power, and it would define how both fans and fellow musicians viewed him in the years to come. By the early 2000s, Vince Gill's career had already cemented him as a country music legend. He had sold millions of records, collected countless awards, and built a loyal fan base that adored his authenticity. But life, as it often does, continued to throw challenges his way. What made Vince stand out during this period wasn't just his ability to handle success, it was how he faced heartbreak, tragedy, and the sometimes unbearable weight of loss with honesty and grace. One of the most profound moments in Vince's life was the death of his older brother, Bob, who had suffered from brain damage after a devastating car accident years earlier. Vince had always been close to his family, and his brother's passing left a deep scar. Out of that grief came Go Rest High on That Mountain, a song that started as a way to process his brother's death but grew into something far greater. Every time Vince performed it, he wasn't just singing, he was offering healing. For fans, the song became a lifeline, something they leaned on during funerals, moments of grief, and times when words weren't enough. Vince often said he never realized how many lives the song would touch, but it became one of his defining contributions to music. Beyond personal loss, Vince also faced the shifting landscape of the music industry. Country music was changing rapidly in the 2000s, moving toward a more pop-driven sound. Many traditionalists feared that heartfelt, story-driven songs like Vince's would be drowned out. But Vince never chased trends. Instead, he doubled down on authenticity, releasing projects that showcased his love for bluegrass, gospel, and traditional country. His 2006 album, These Days, was a massive undertaking. 4 full discs of music that explored every corner of his artistry. Critics praised it as bold and ambitious, proving that Vince wasn't interested in playing it safe. However, behind the scenes, Vince wrestled with insecurities about his place in a younger, flashier industry. He openly admitted that the demands of fame sometimes left him weary. Yet, instead of retreating, he leaned into his role as an elder statesman of country music. He began mentoring younger artists, reminding them of the importance of storytelling and humility. For Vince, music wasn't just a career, it was a calling. On a more personal level, Vince's marriage to Amy Grant became a stabilizing force. Together, they blended their families and created a home rooted in faith, love, and music. Still, balancing a busy touring schedule with family responsibilities wasn't always easy. Vince often spoke about the guilt of missing moments with his children because of career obligations, something many parents, famous or not, could relate to. This struggle humanized him even more in the eyes of fans. Perhaps the most striking aspect of Vince Gill during this time was his vulnerability. He was never afraid to let audiences see his emotions on stage. Whether tearing up during a performance of Go Rest High on That Mountain or laughing warmly while introducing a lighthearted tune, Vince's authenticity made him relatable in a way few stars could achieve. By the mid-2010s, Vince's career had evolved into something deeper than chart success. He had become a cultural touchstone, someone whose music carried meaning beyond entertainment. Through loss, change, and self-doubt, Vince showed that strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about embracing it, turning it into art, and sharing it with the world. As Vince Gill entered his later years, fans noticed that his once tireless energy had begun to slow. While he continued to perform, record, and collaborate, whispers about his health began circulating. Long tours and the physical demands of decades in the spotlight had taken a toll on his body. In interviews, Vince admitted that the road wasn't as easy as it used to be. His back and knees gave him trouble, and like many artists who've spent their lives under stage lights and endless travel, fatigue was a constant battle. The devastating news that emerged in recent years was tied not only to his health, but also to the fragility of life itself. Vince lost dear friends and fellow musicians, each departure reminding him, and his fans, of the passage of time. He carried the pain of these losses with grace, often dedicating songs to those who had gone before him. For Vince, grief had always been transformed into music, but fans couldn't help noticing the sadness in his voice and the slower pace of his life. Beyond physical struggles, Vince also faced the challenge of staying relevant in a rapidly changing music industry dominated by younger stars and digital trends. Yet, instead of fading into the background, he embraced a new role as a guardian of country's soul. Joining the Eagles after Glenn Frey's death was one of the most surprising moves of his career. Fans were astonished at how seamlessly Vince stepped into one of the most legendary bands of all time, honoring Glenn's memory while bringing his own tenderness to the group's classic hits. It was proof that his artistry transcended generations and genres. At home, Vince leaned heavily on the love of Amy Grant and their family. Their marriage, once scrutinized in the public eye, grew into one of country music's most admired unions. When Amy herself suffered a frightening health scare after a serious bicycle accident in 2022, Vince devoted himself to her recovery. It was a reminder that even legends face the same fears and fragility as everyone else. Together, they showed resilience, leaning on faith and love to weather life's storms, the devastating news. Surrounding Vince today isn't just about his health or the passing years, it's about the heartbreaking realization for fans that their beloved artist may no longer perform with the same frequency or intensity. Concerts are fewer, his appearances more selective, and each show feels like a gift, a fleeting chance to hear one of the most beloved voices in music history. Yet, amid the heartbreak, Vince Gill's legacy is undeniable. With over 20 Grammys, dozens of CMA and ACM awards, and induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, he stands as one of the most decorated artists in the genre. More importantly, he is remembered as a man of kindness, humility, and grace, someone who never allowed fame to harden him. For every fan who has leaned on his songs in moments of joy or sorrow, Vince's music has been more than entertainment. It has been a companion. As he faces the twilight of his career, Vince Gill's story is both devastating and inspiring. The man who gave so much of his heart through music now asks for understanding as time takes its toll. Fans may grieve the slowing of his career, but they also celebrate the decades of unforgettable songs and the enduring spirit of a legend who never stopped being true to himself. Vince Gill may not stand on stage forever, but his voice, tender, timeless, and healing, will echo for generations to come.